Well, hello and welcome to Status Chat episode 280 on this beautiful November 6th of 2025. Today's episode is great news for millions of Americans. And I know a lot of you might be thinking, Del, after I watch this, we're going to be talking about stuff that's probably the least real estate-y related show you've ever done. But I think, like the title says, this is great news for millions of Americans. And of course, we'll get to it right after I tell you how to find me. Find the QR code right above here, snap it, grab it, whatever it takes. That'll take you directly to the Status Chat list on the YouTube. You might not be watching this on YouTube, maybe watching it from my real estate website, CallDelToSell.com. You may also get it off of maybe Insta or LinkedIn, or seeing it off of Facebook. Wherever you might find it, you might not have access to the direct link, but you do that, you can go back to where they all are stored to find out what my success or error rate might be in my predictions. All right, well, let's look at what we've got going on for our great news, because it is related in a lot of ways to the health of America and us in general. Right, because if you don't really feel well, chances are you're not going to be looking to step into the housing market or out, or housing, either which way. You might not be looking to make a change because your life is in conflict with something, or maybe a family member or someone else you have. But I got some good news for you. But before we hit that, let's talk about the Mortgage News Daily, because we want to see what a 30-year rate looks like. 30-year rate, Mortgage News Daily, you know where to find this, right? What is our trend? It's going down. Our 30-year fixed mortgage rates are improving. Isn't that wonderful? Right. Now let's get into our good news. But bear with me. I'll relate it to real estate in a minute. It is, what do we got going on here with this magic class of drugs called GLP-1s. Now, you may be familiar with it. They've been out for 20 years, but maybe, since right there it is, April of 2005, but maybe you're not a type 2 diabetic, and maybe you didn't have really great insurance and you couldn't afford this, so these may be a little bit new that you might hear from it. Well, they are effective for millions of people in losing weight. And unfortunately, with diabetes 2, or the adult onset, oftentimes is a chicken or egg thing. You may be having, is it the change in body system that leads you to be diabetic, or is it the diabetic that leads you to be obese, or vice versa? Either which way, if you're a little bit fluffy, like I am, or you're diabetic, like I am, you may be familiar with the drug, but you just haven't been able to afford it for a long time if your insurance doesn't cover it, because it is tremendously expensive. Well, let's hit this next little slide right here. How much does the obesity epidemic, they want to call it epidemic, in America cost? And we have some people think it may be everything from the preservative in the food, to a lack of exercise, to genetic changes, to other things, to jabs of various sorts that have changed our system, or whatever it is. But according to Google, obesity costs the United States billions of dollars per year, with an estimated annual medical expenditures alone. That's just the doctor's stuff, right? Reaching nearly $173 billion. When considering the broader economic impacts, such as productivity losses, and some estimates place the total annual cost much higher at $1.4 trillion. Well, if you don't mind, I don't always want to sell you a house or sell your house. Sometimes it's about just being human. Well, I have bad knee joints. I think they were long bad, genetically, I think. And so as I slow down in physical activity, I gained a little bit more in weight, and the gaining a little more weight gets a little better on the joint. So how much money could we maybe save ourselves and our nation in lost time and lost family outings and everything else that it takes to be human, if we can save from having to put some very expensive artificial joints in if we can make people healthier. You see where I'm going with this? I think this is a huge issue, but historically, you had to be diabetic or rich to get access to the drug. You get a prescription, but wait till you find out how much these drugs cost if you don't already know. If you're new to this type of stuff like I was just until recently, you may not know how much they cost. So here we have our news. NBC News. This Dateline is today because it was announced today. Trump strikes a new deal to lower the cost of weight loss drugs. Novo Nordisk, I have trouble with that, it's a tongue twister, and Eli Lilly said they have agreed to sell their blockbuster drugs Wegovy and Zepbound at a discount. And we're not going to watch that video right there. There have our date, 2006, November the 6th, which is our lovely day today. So this was just released today. Right. President Trump said Thursday his administration has reached a deal to lower the cost of the blockbuster GLP-1 weight loss drugs Wegovy and Zepbound, a move that could significantly expand access to the widely popular drugs, through some details remain unclear. They want to say right here, this is what we want to look for. The drug could range from $50 to $350. This would be a month, depending on the dosage and insurance coverage. And that's what I'm trying to say. It seems like if you're rich, the world is your oyster, but if you're working class or you're maybe a little less benefited by finances clogging up your lifestyle, you just miss out. And so we'll see on my last slide on this, we'll look at what Hollywood has been using this for a while, and that may be where some of you know about it if you aren't diabetic, because they started out as a type 2 diabetic medicine, which was highly restricted, and you got to be diabetic to get it, and maybe your insurance won't let you do it. I don't know if you remember, since it's open enrollment, I'm remembering Obamacare as we speak. Remember when Obama was selling this socialized version? It was supposed to be, it wasn't a tax until he needed it to be a tax, and he was going to force everybody to buy it, and if you didn't buy it, you was going to jail, whatever the deal was. Well, he had said something, and this fits into us with diabetes and our age and our life expectancy. Well, he said if grandma has a bad hip, rather than spending $150,000 on grandma's hip because she's old, we'll just give her some pain pills and make her go away and save that money that we would have wasted on grandma and put it on a younger person. Well, that didn't sit well with me, even though I wasn't particularly old, but because I happened to have a mother who got a hip put in, and I would not want somebody making quality of life decisions on her based upon she's just too old. Same thing with being maybe too poor. I wouldn't want you to suffer too terribly much, but that's been what it's been. It's if you weren't diabetic, you couldn't afford it, and if your insurance didn't cover it, because these things are tremendously expensive. As we see right here, as I roll that little blank spot up where their advertisement was. Currently, Eli Lilly's Zepbound and Novo Nordisk's Wegovy carry list prices above $1,000 per month. I actually called someone and asked them, what is it if you don't have a plan? And they said it's $1,600. One place said it was $1,400. I guess it depends on the pharmacy. Although both companies have introduced lower price options for patients paying in cash and purchasing their drugs directly through their websites to further expand access. Costco recently announced that it would sell Wegovy and Ozempic for $4.99 a month. That's still a heck of a lot of money. $500 a month for one person for one medication. That could be cost prohibitive for millions of people, even at the discount, right? While Walmart, Walmart and Sam's Club are related. Walmart got a deal with Eli Lilly's Zepbound. But any way you look at it, there is such an access to this drug issue because of how much it costs. Your insurance needs to cover it. And I was bringing the Obamacare with grandma giving her pain pills instead of a new hip, because at some point, some people maybe, don't quote me on it, I'm just guessing, maybe some people, they would look at it and say, no, our drug plan does not cover you for that. Here's a sulfonylurea or insulin or some other version of something to treat your diabetes. We're not going to really treat your obesity unless you were morbidly obese and could get like a stomach surgery or something like that. But how invasive is that? How much would that cost if we could do it with something else that didn't require the hospital stays and the recovery and the lost time? Remember, it said $1.4 trillion they thought in other costs, lost productivity. So if we look at this, I think this is worth covering on my little show here. All right, so it's over $1,000 a month. We see that we're going to drop it down to $500 a month through those two retail outlets. And you might get a help from the drug manufacturer, but a lot of times they are so exclusive that the working class folks can't qualify for them because their income is too high, right? So that's a little tough for them to get into. Anyway, we're going to skip through here or skip past the wicked commercial right there. The price reduction is important, and the manufacturers seem willing to do this, but it's still very expensive, Kaplan said. I saw one of the drug makers said that they were willing to make a deal with Trump because of his tariffs. He agreed to drop the tariffs on their drugs if they would expand access to their weight loss drug. And it may be the same drug as a diabetic drug, but it was FDA approved and branded different, so the insurance won't cover weight loss drugs for a lot of people. So here we go. During the White House briefing, Trump said Medicare and Medicaid will finally cover the cost of the weight loss drugs, millions of patients suffering from obesity. So if you're a retiree, if you're on Medicare, you wouldn't have been able to get this if you weren't diabetic, because Medicare doesn't cover the drug. It would cover if you were diabetic. Again, we've stomped on those grapes a few times, but if you were just obese and wanted to get healthier, it wouldn't cover it, right? That is a huge thing that affects a lot of people. Also, maybe there are other people on disability or younger people on it. Morbid obesity is a disability, and that can get you on certain things. So it's saying right there, Medicaid and Medicare will cover it finally as a weight loss drug, not a diabetic one. On Trump RX, I can hear a few of you people watching right now rolling your eyes. Trump is everything Trump. Everything's Trump. He names after himself. Did we not call the Unaffordable Health Care Act Obamacare? Was that not his name when it was supposed to be a good thing? We had Obama's name on it. So why shouldn't Trump, both of them are president, why should Trump put his name on this deal somehow, whatever it is? So on Trump RX, right there, the government discount platform for buying prescription drugs with cash, maybe that's for the uninsured. The average monthly cost for Wegovy and Zepbound will start at $350. That's better than the other two. Better than Costco, better than the Walmart or whoever it was, and will drop to $250 for the next 2 years, according to the administration details. Medicare and Medicaid will cover the GLP-1 drugs for diabetes and some other medical conditions, like if you had heart issues or kidney issues. Medicare and Medicaid, from what I understand, would have covered the diabetes version of the drugs for some people, but not just strictly for the weight loss. And we see what cost that obesity causes this nation already. So let's look at a little CDC, something I found just to drive that home, to show you how important this is. I think this is why this is such a big announcement. The consequences of obesity. Well, health conditions. They're going to tell you about high blood pressure, high cholesterol are risk factors for heart disease. Type 2 diabetes is a risk factor. Breathing problem, asthma, sleep apnea. I got asthma myself, which is the reason I can't have a pet in the house. I love cats and dogs, but I can't have one because of my asthma. Right, joint problem, if the weight is tearing your knees up. These are all health conditions that can be complicated from from the obesity. Why wouldn't we want to cover this as a nation and help people out? Don't you want your neighbor, your friends, your family to be healthier? If there's a little drug that we can do, we're America. We ought to be able to take care of at least this one little problem better than we have done in the past. All right, everybody hates Big Pharma, but Big Pharma are the ones who come up with the drugs. Gallstones and gallbladder disease, economic impact, they're going to give you the same numbers. This time they're going to tell you it's from 2019 is where they got the 173 billion, right? So we know it's there. Now look at how this works. Hollywood has been using this to lose weight fast as some sort of magic thing. And if you got Hollywood kind of money, you're able to get the drug. You could pay that $1,600 a month if you're going to get a multi-million-dollar role acting in some TV show, right? So we see that it's magic drugs. That's what people are calling it. But it's going to tell us a little bit here that they don't like the name magic because every drug, every action has a reaction. Every drug has a side effect. Nothing in this world is for free. How many of you people knew who Cage the Elephant was? That was a band after my time, but they have there ain't no rest for the wicked and nothing is for free. I'm not going to quote that directly because maybe they'll deplatform me if I use their song lyric. But here we have it. Drugs such as Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro, I can't say that correct. I don't take that drug, don't know about it, can help some people lose 15 to 20% of their body weight. As much as 60 pounds for some people who started at 300 pounds. Now, they're going to talk a little bit here when they talk about doctors and psychologists and eating disorder experts worry that these new medications originally developed to treat diabetes could become a problem long term. Well, most people just need a little help. It's the onus is going to be on the individual person to correct their eating habits and their diet, but if we can stave off putting hip joints or knee joints into people, we can keep people on the job working where they're paying into retirement, where they're saving money to buy a house or to sell a house or to buy a second house. Maybe they want a boat lot, one with a boat yard or whatever it is. Any of these things, if we can get them healthier, I'm all for it. I'm here for that, as the kids say right there. All right, so let's look at our numbers for this week. I got a red line on my voice. I may have gotten a little rambunctious there. 10/30 of 25. That was last week. We had 30,054 in the availables. That increased over the previous week. We see that we dropped a little bit. 42.32 in the under contract still showing last week. And the ratio between those two numbers remained the same, unchanged. So this week, 11/6/25, we have 29,463. That's dropping a little bit. Where are my arrows at? I'm not going to reshoot this to put the arrows back in, but there they are. And like magic, they just showed up. All right, we went down in both of those indices this week, but the ratio between them, as you see, did not change, 14%. So there's nothing majorly happening right now. I would say, if you notice that we're trending down just a little bit, I personally think that it's probably because we're going into the fall. We're starting to get close to Turkey Day. We're just a few weeks away from that. And so a lot of people get motivated by Thanksgiving because maybe it's their turn to have it over the house. And it's just people elbow to elbow, and they think we want a bigger house, a nicer kitchen, or a bigger dining room or something, a bigger house. So sometimes Thanksgiving triggers people to think about it. They often wait till after December holidays. So it's still not too late to list a house or whatever, or even start prepping your house if you want to sell. We are starting to see rates come down, as we learned from our first slide there. So that's it. I think we're doing pretty good. I want to remind you to hit that subscribe button over on the YouTube page. Smash it. Hit the notification bell. Did you see that? That's new for this week. I've used this in one of the other shows. And